The brands that spend the most on sustainability marketing are not the ones making the most progress on sustainability. In some cases, the research suggests the opposite is true. And if you've been paying closer attention to packaging than most people, reading the claims, checking the certifications, choosing the higher-priced option because it seemed like the honest one, that's not protection, that's the target. Because greenwashing is not random. It is not sloppy marketing from companies that haven't thought it through. It is a set of specific, studied, psychologically calibrated tactics. And the person those tactics were designed to work on is someone exactly like you. Someone who cares enough to read the label. Someone who trusts third-party certifications. Someone who is willing to pay more, choose less conveniently, and feel the cost of getting it wrong. That profile, the eco-conscious consumer, has been researched, modeled, and specifically targeted. This video is going to show you what that targeting actually looks like. 6 specific mechanisms. Not the surface claims, the psychological machinery underneath each one. And for each of them, a single detection question you can use in real time, without research, at the point of purchase. Here is what most greenwashing content misses. It treats greenwashing as a lie. A false claim that could, in principle, be fact-checked and corrected. Some of it is that, but the more sophisticated version isn't a lie in the simple sense. It is a carefully constructed environment in which your own values do the work of deceiving you. The research on this is worth sitting with for a moment. A 2023 analysis of sustainability claims across major consumer product categories found that more than half of green marketing claims in the EU were either vague, misleading, or unsubstantiated. In the US, the FTC's Green Guides, the federal framework for what sustainability claims are and aren't permissible, have been in place since 1992 and revised multiple times since. And the claims keep coming. Not because brands haven't read the guidelines, because the guidelines draw a line and the tactics have been refined to operate just inside it, or to exploit the gap between what's technically permissible and what a reasonable person would actually understand. That gap is where greenwashing lives, and it is specifically engineered for the person at the shelf who trusts that someone, somewhere is checking. Here is the harder thing to hold. The psychological mechanisms that greenwashing exploits: trust and transparency, preference for independent verification, forward-looking optimism about companies trying to change, sensitivity to aesthetic cues that signal naturalness. These are not naive traits. They are the traits that accompany genuine environmental concern. The tactics work on people who care, precisely because people who care have developed exactly these responses. You are not going to stop caring. What you are going to do by the end of this video is see the mechanism. And once you can see it, it stops working the way it was designed to. Now, here's what that mechanism actually looks like. 6 specific tactics, one at a time. Tactic 1. Vague language that sounds precise. Words like eco-friendly, natural, green, clean, earth-conscious, planet-positive. These words feel like claims. They are not claims. A claim is verifiable. It says something specific enough that it could, in principle, be proven false. Eco-friendly cannot be proven false because it has no agreed-upon referent. It means nothing regulated, nothing measured, nothing that any independent body has verified. The mechanism here is specific. Eco-conscious consumers have trained themselves to look for signals. Eco-friendly is a signal word. It activates the trust response before the critical evaluation can engage. By the time you're reading the next line of text on the packaging, the claim has already done its work. The detection question for Tactic 1 is this: precise relative to what, exactly? If you can't answer that question from the label, if eco-friendly isn't followed by a specific, verifiable statement about what makes it so and how that was measured, the word is doing marketing, not communication. Tactic 2. Irrelevant truth. This is the tactic that tends to produce the most frustration once people see it, because it is technically accurate. A product advertised as free from a specific harmful ingredient, formaldehyde, certain pesticides, a particular class of plastic, where that ingredient was already banned, already phased out by the industry, or was never actually used in that product category. The claim is true. It is also meaningless. The mechanism. Eco-conscious consumers have learned to interpret disclosure of eliminated negatives as a signal of transparency. If a brand is telling you what's not in the product, that feels like honesty. It activates the assumption of voluntary disclosure, that they didn't have to tell you this, and they chose to, which implies they tell you the difficult things too. In many cases, They didn't have to tell you this because there was nothing to tell. The detection question for Tactic 2. Would this claim have been remarkable 5 years ago? If the answer is no, if X-free is simply table stakes for this product category, or if X was never part of this product, the claim is real estate on the packaging, not information. Tactic 3. Certification theater. This one is the most effective on the most informed consumers. Because it specifically targets the behavior that informed, eco-conscious consumers have learned as a defense, looking for third-party verification. Here is what the certification landscape actually looks like. Some certifications are rigorous, independently verified, and meaningful. B Corp, Fairtrade USA, USDA Organic, FSC, Energy Star in certain categories. Others are self-created by the industry, being certified, minimally verified, or meaningful only in a narrow technical sense that has nothing to do with the consumer's actual concern. Some are created by the brand itself and designed to look like independent endorsements. The mechanism. Eco-conscious consumers have correctly identified third-party certification as a more reliable signal than brand claims. Greenwashing at this level doesn't fight that instinct. It mimics it. A logo that looks like it was designed by an independent body, using language that implies rigorous standards, activates the certification trust response without the verification behind it. The detection question for Tactic 3. Who runs this certification and who funds it? 10 seconds of searching the certification body's name usually answers both questions. If the funder is the industry being certified, or if the certifying body has no independently verifiable auditing process, the logo is a design choice, not an endorsement. Tactic 4. The aspirational offset. Carbon offset claims, net zero pledges with a 2050 target date, commitments to plant 1 million trees by 2030. These are not lies. Exactly. Some offset programs have genuine integrity, but the mechanism of how they are used in marketing is worth understanding precisely. Aspirational claims displace attention from current practices. When a brand announces a commitment to reach net zero by 2040, the marketing frame moves the conversation to the future, where the brand gets credit for the intention, and away from the present, where the actual footprint lives. The research on offset quality is genuinely complicated, and any channel that gives you a clean answer about whether offsets work is simplifying past the actual evidence. What is less complicated is this. A commitment made in 2024 to reach net zero by 2050 carries no legal obligation, no verified current reduction, and no penalty for non-delivery. The mechanism. Eco-conscious consumers tend toward forward-looking optimism about companies that signal genuine effort to change. That optimism is not naive. Real corporate transformation does happen, and the signal matters. But aspirational marketing has learned to capture the credit of transformation before the transformation occurs. The detection question for Tactic 4. What is this company's verified current footprint? And what would this commitment represent as a percentage of that? If those numbers aren't available, the commitment is a press release, not a plan. Tactic 5. Visual greenwashing. Green color palettes, leaves, forests, clean water imagery, brown craft paper, white space, clean, sans serif typography. The packaging aesthetic that communicates environmental virtue without making a single verifiable claim. This is the tactic that requires no language at all. And that makes it the most difficult to fact check, because there is nothing stated to check. The mechanism here is one of the most well documented in consumer psychology. Environmental values are strongly associated with specific aesthetic cues, natural colors, minimal design, imagery of intact ecosystems. Brands reproduce those cues in packaging without the underlying substance, because the cues themselves trigger the trust response in consumers who hold those values. You see the packaging and your values recognize it. The detection question for Tactic 5 is uncomfortable in its simplicity. Strip the visuals. What is the actual claim in words? If the words don't support what the packaging communicates, if the aesthetic is the entire argument, the packaging is doing work the product cannot do. Tactic 6. The lesser evil frame. Made with 30% recycled materials, 50% less plastic than our previous packaging. Our most sustainable product yet. These claims are structured comparisons. They are usually true, and they are almost always framed to obscure the most relevant comparison. The mechanism. Eco-conscious consumers, like all consumers, experience choice fatigue. When a product is presented as more sustainable than something else, the relativistic reasoning of better is progress engages, and the question of whether better is actually good enough or whether better is the relevant comparison at all, doesn't get asked. 50% less plastic than our previous packaging sounds like meaningful progress. It may be. It may also be that the previous packaging was far worse than any competitors, that the new packaging still uses significantly more plastic than available alternatives, or that the product itself is one where not purchasing is the lower impact choice. The detection question for Tactic 6, more sustainable than what? And is that the relevant comparison? When the comparison is to the brand's own past performance, ask what the comparison to the best available alternative looks like. That number is rarely on the packaging. Here is the synthesis, and it is the part most content on this topic won't say directly. Greenwashing works especially well on eco-conscious consumers, not despite their values, but because of them. The trust in transparency, exploited by Tactic 2. The learned reliance on third-party verification, exploited by Tactic 3. The forward-looking optimism about companies genuinely trying to change, exploited by Tactic 4. The sensitivity to aesthetic signals of naturalness and environmental alignment, exploited by Tactic 5. The willingness to reward relative progress, exploited by Tactic 6. Every one of these psychological responses is a reasonable, developed trait in someone who takes environmental impact seriously. They are not evidence of naivete. They are the traits that develop in people who have paid attention long enough to learn that defaults are insufficient, that you have to look, that you have to verify, that credentials matter. The tactics were designed specifically to intercept those traits, which means the person who has been most systematically misled by greenwashing is not the consumer who doesn't care. It's the one who cares the most and has tried the hardest to make that care actionable at the point of purchase. Hold that for a moment, because there's something important in it. The fact that your values are worth this level of sophisticated manipulation is not evidence that your values are naive. It is evidence that they are real. Real enough to be worth billions of dollars in marketing spend to capture. Real enough that the gap between what brands claim and what they do has generated regulatory action in the EU, FTC enforcement proceedings in the US, and a growing body of litigation. Your suspicion was not paranoia. It was accurate perception. And now you have the mechanisms, which changes what the next moment at the shelf looks like. If you want the category-by-category version of what this video covered, a field guide that takes the 6 detection questions and applies them across 8 specific product categories with verified certifications and documented red flags. There's a resource in the description built exactly for that. It's designed to be something you can actually reference at the point of purchase, not something that requires rereading before every shopping trip. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Here is the honest version of what this framework actually gives you. It does not give you a clean answer about which brands are trustworthy. It does not eliminate the difficulty of making purchasing decisions in a market where verification is time-consuming and information is asymmetric. What it gives you is something more durable than a list of approved brands, a set of questions that work regardless of what the packaging says. And it is worth being direct about one thing the 6 tactics do not imply. Not every brand making sustainability claims is lying. Some certifications are rigorous and meaningful. Some commitments are genuine and tracked. Some comparative claims reflect real, verified progress against a relevant baseline. The goal of this framework is not to produce blanket cynicism, because blanket cynicism is just as inaccurate as blanket trust, and it tends to produce the same result: paralysis. The goal is calibrated discernment, the ability to distinguish, in real time, between a claim that could in principle be verified and a claim that is designed to prevent the question from forming. Here is the one thing, not 6, worth taking into the next purchase decision. Pick the detection question that applies to the category you buy in most consistently. If it's food, Tactic 3 is probably most relevant. Who runs this certification and who funds it? If it's personal care or cleaning products, Tactic 1, precise relative to what? If it's anything from a brand with a prominent carbon or net zero claim, Tactic 4, what is the verified current footprint? One question applied consistently to one category for 30 days. That is worth more than trying to apply 6 filters simultaneously to every purchase and then exhausting yourself and applying none of them. The goal is not to become a full-time investigator of sustainability claims. The goal is to make your existing care more accurate. You are already paying attention. Now you know what you're looking for. If you want the category-by-category reference for this, the one that gives you the red flags, verified certifications, and detection framework for 8 specific product types, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment. It's the portable version of what this video covered. Which of the 6 tactics hit closest to home, and which brand or product came to mind the moment you heard it? So here is where this actually lands. The guilt you may have been carrying about making the wrong sustainable choices, about being fooled, about paying the premium for something that turned out to be packaging and not principle. That guilt is real, and it is also, at least in significant part, misplaced. Not because your choices don't matter, but because you were operating in an information environment that was specifically designed to make accurate choice-making difficult for exactly the kind of person you are. You are not off the hook. You still have a purchasing footprint, and the decisions inside it still carry real weight. But you are also not the primary failure point in this system. The primary failure point is a regulatory environment that has allowed unverified claims to accumulate for decades, a certification landscape that has been partially captured by the industries it was meant to police, and a marketing ecosystem that has learned to treat the sincerity of eco-conscious consumers as a conversion mechanism. Both things are true simultaneously. Your choices matter, and the deck has been stacked against your ability to make them accurately. The honest version of what you do with that is not to stop trying. It is to try with better tools than the ones the market was hoping you'd use. You now have 6 of them, not as reassurance, as a more accurate description of your actual situation. You are someone whose values are real enough to be worth billions of dollars in effort to capture. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, the beginning of understanding what your attention and your purchasing decisions are actually worth, and what it looks like to spend them somewhere that deserves them. Imperfect and coherent. That's the goal. Not perfect knowledge of every supply chain. Not the ability to fact-check every label in real time. Just the specific, portable clarity to see the mechanism when it's running, and to ask the question the packaging was hoping you wouldn't think to ask. That cost gets named here. The cost of caring enough to pay attention in a market that has studied how to use that attention against you. It is real, and it is not nothing. And it is also something you now have a better map for.